Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1335A, and today's date is July 18th, 2017, and the title of the episode is The Central Banks are Preparing for the Economic Transition. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Central banks, well, they understand that this economy was never meant to last. I mean, it should have collapsed in 2008, and they created this illusion to prepare for when this entire system comes down. And they've been preparing for the last couple of years, but they knew eventually this system would go through a transition from the old system, the old paper dollar, the old reserve currency that the world is using right now, to something completely different. Now, this can be many different types of currencies. There can be a currency that sits on top where governments and corporations, they use this currency to trade. It could be gold-backed, it could be silver-backed. Then there might be local currencies that the everyday person uses. Now, again, we might not even have a reserve currency. Maybe on the top level, it won't be a reserve currency of one particular nation. It might be something that all countries decided to use, and it's backed by something tangible. On the local level, well, we understand that it might be digital. Again, the central banks, there's many things happening all at once here. The central banks, they want to control the currency. They always have, they always will, and it doesn't matter if it's paper, it doesn't matter if it's digital, as long as they have control, it's centralized. Even though everyone's talking about the blockchain technology, Bitcoin, Litecoin, all the different coins, we need to understand there still can be control of this technology. Because what we see is there's corporations that are being formed where they use this technology, they develop this technology, they control this technology. Same thing with the central banks. What they want to do is they want to develop and control and have everyone use this digital system. And it won't be a truth type of system because they still will be able to manipulate it. Remember, just because it's a blockchain type of technology, it doesn't mean those who are in control, those who are fiddling with it, writing the code, well, they still have the ability to manipulate it in their way. So when we look at this, we want this to be completely decentralized. We don't want a central point where they're controlling all of this. And what we're seeing is that central banks, they are getting ready for this transition. And they want to be in control. We're going to be talking about this in a little bit. Now, what we're seeing here is the economy, well, it's continually deteriorating. It's not improving. And we're already starting to see signs where they're starting to blame this on Trump. Now, we knew this eventually was going to happen. We have the National Association of Home Builders. They are out there and they're saying that, well, we have a problem with new homes. And the confidence is dropping amongst home builders. And they're blaming this on Trump. Why? Because of the Canadian lumber tariffs that he imposed. They're saying it's become unaffordable to build these homes. And what we're seeing right now is that single-family sales, they have fallen from 72 to 70. Future single-family homes have fallen from 75 to 73. We see that prospective buyers' traffic has fallen from 49 to 48. And they're out there saying, listen, because of what Trump is doing, his policies, and he really does not have that many policies in place right now. Yes, he has this one tariff, but when you look closely at it, and this is, again, coming from the National Association of Home Builders, Chairman Granger McDonald, he's saying that our members are telling us they are growing increasingly concerned over rising material prices, particularly lumber. This is hurting housing affordability, even as consumer interest in the new home market remains very, very strong. Now, again, looking at the lumber prices, when you look at them, they are still below the April 25th levels when Trump invoked the tariff. So when they talk about raising costs and the problem with lumber, it really doesn't exist. What they're really seeing is that the system is breaking down. I remember going back in time 2-3 years ago when the corporate media, when everyone was out there saying that, oh, the retail sales, they're not doing well because it snowed on this day. And remember, it only snowed in one portion of the country. The rest, the 98% of the country, they were fine, but it snowed up in the, maybe the Northeast, and people went, oh, that's why people aren't shopping. They blamed it on the weather. Then they started to blame it online because they were running out of excuses. Now they're blaming it on, well, we don't know, because they're using the weather, they're using online, they're using anything they possibly can to make sure that people don't understand what is going on. And back then we said, no, this problem's going to get worse. It has nothing to do with the weather. It has nothing to do with online. It has to do with people not having the funds to go out and to purchase these goods. The same thing now is happening in the real estate market, in the new construction market. They're going to be pointing fingers at things that don't exist because they don't want to admit that this economy is fake, phony, and false, and it's completely built on an illusion. And what's going to happen is that these lumber prices, where they're going to be complaining about the prices, they're really not going to move. Just like we've seen since April 25th, they haven't really moved anywhere. And what is going to happen is the real estate market is going to continually decline. And again, they're going to run out of excuses. They can't use the weather right now because it's sunny. So they have to resort to something else. Now, if you take this a step further, we know that investment companies, hedge funds, foreign entities, they've been purchasing homes, they've been purchasing commercial real estate, and they've been propping up this market. Meanwhile, the everyday American has been sitting on the sidelines. The next generation, well, they can't get out of their parents' homes. They can't find jobs where they make enough to purchase a home. And those people who are lucky enough to purchase a home with no money down, well, or with a variable interest rate, they might be in trouble moving forward. Now, when we look at commercial real estate, we see there's a problem once again. Has nothing to do with the weather, has nothing to do with the materials. It has to do with foreign investors, mainly Chinese entities, because they accounted for half of the commercial real estate purchases with prices over $10 million. And when we go back in time, we see that this is what's been happening. If you go back to 2011 through 2014, the total cross-border purchases from all over the world, not just from China, were in the mid-20% range. At a time when domestic investors pulled back, foreign parties jumped in. At the end of the first half of 2017, the annual forecast of total transaction volume was on pace to be 40% lower than 2016 and 60% drop off 2015. At the current pace, 2017 is shaping up to have the lowest sale count since the period from 2008 to 2010. And what is happening right now is these foreign investors, they're drying up right now. If you look at Midtown and downtown in New York, leasing volume in the second quarter plunged by 35%. In Midtown, the vacancy rate rose to 11%, up from 10.1% a year ago. Downtown, it rose 12.1%, up from 10.4% a year ago. This is not just happening in Manhattan. It's happening in many different cities. So this is an ongoing situation, and what we're looking at is something that happened back in 2007, going into 2008, where everything started to decline. We were pumped up from 2011 all the way to 2015. Then we started the decline from 2015 onward, and it's accelerating right now. And we saw the same thing happen back prior to the Great Recession of 2008. So this fake economy, it's coming to an end. That's what all this is telling us. Now, U.S. imports and export prices, they tumbled for the second month, and we're starting to see the same exact thing happen once again that happened in 2007 going into 2008. Now, we're starting to see that the import price index from China, well, it's resumed its downward trend. And once again, if you go back to 2008 into 2009, we saw the same thing happen once again. Actually, right at the end of 2007, all of a sudden, everything just started to fall apart. We're following the same exact pattern once again. So we have problems all over the place, and all these economic indicators that we've been looking at, they're following the same exact pattern. Because why? This is a bubble pattern, and they always follow the same course. Now, the time frame might be different. We might have bubbles that only last 4 or 5 years and then they pop, and then we have bubbles that might last 8, 9, 10 years and then pop. But the same theme does occur, where they all pop. Now, the banks, the central banks, they realize this is coming. Trump understands that this is coming. The world understands that this is coming. Maybe not the population at large, but governments, central banks, they know that this system is on its last leg here. And they're preparing for this transition. This is why Trump is talking about bringing back manufacturing, drilling here in the United States, and doing everything here in America. This is why he's pushing this campaign. Now, is it the best campaign ever? Are people buying it? No, the corporate media is going to be shooting it down. They don't want made in America. They want globalism. But you have to remember what's going to happen. When the system comes down, what happens when the dollar is no longer the reserve currency? When the dollar is devalued? Trade, well, it dries up. All those cheap products, when the dollar is devalued, become very expensive. And the imports become very expensive, which means that we're not going to be importing that much. All those cheap products and everything from all these other countries, well, they're going to be a lot more money. It'd be cheaper at that point to build it here in the U.S., to drill for our own oil, to establish trade, because this is the only way the United States is going to survive. If we don't have this, it's going to be very, very difficult. But banks and central banks, they're preparing on the currency level because they understand that the dollar, well, it's not going to last. It's not going to be the reserve currency of the world. We can see already that everything is moving from the west to the east. They're duplicating everything that we've had here, and it's been going on for quite a while. It's not like, yesterday we woke up and all of a sudden they have the same type of stock market. They have the same type of gold exchange. They have a system that looks just like the SWIFT system, that operates like the SWIFT system. We can see that countries are selling off their treasuries. They're trading, bypassing the dollar. This has been going on since 2011 and onward, and it's accelerated to this point. Now, we've been reporting on all of this, and what we've seen is that, yes, everything that we've been talking about, well, here we are. Everything is prepared and ready. And now we're getting ready to take the next step. It's not like, one day it's going to happen. No, we're here getting ready to take the next step. Now, the game changer is cryptocurrency, where this is coming into the mainstream here. People are looking at this. It's an efficient system to use currency, to basically use it as a digital currency, because it can be decentralized, where each system around the world has a ledger, and each system checks with another to make sure that, yes, these transactions are true. And each ledger keeps every single transaction going back throughout time. And it checks with each and every one of them. This is what makes it a truth machine. Now, the problem is if the central banks control it and it's not decentralized. And that's what the central banks want to do. Yes, they would like to use the digital technology. Yes, they would like to get rid of paper, but they want to be in control of their system. We saw already Goldman Sachs. Well, they just patented their own cryptocurrency settlement system called SetLcoin. Now, the concept envisions a system for settling security trades using cryptocurrency instead of cash or other cash equivalents. Now, they filed this patent back in 2015. They already knew what was happening. They understood, and central banks are doing the same thing. Other banking systems are doing the same thing, because their idea is to maintain control of all this, to own the patents on the systems. And this is what we are seeing right now, because they are prepared and ready to go forward with digital currency as long as they're in charge. Now, what they're saying is that this SetLcoins, this is going to digitize stocks. Now, the application, this exchanging of SetLcoins, well, they're going to be working with firms like Google, Microsoft, and they're going to be working with cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Litecoin in particular. So what they're saying right now is that the settlement times, well, it's going to be instantaneous instead of waiting 2-3 business days. And according to Goldman, SetLcoin is a cryptocurrency that can be exchanged for financial securities over a peer-to-peer network, allowing trades to settle instantaneously because transfer of SetLcoin is instant now. Now remember, they own the patent to this. So we can see at this point, they are ready and prepared. They knew exactly what was happening. They knew exactly what the system was going to be, and they want full control of the system. And the way cryptocurrencies are set up, we don't need these banking systems. We don't need someone to own the patent and to control this stuff. We don't need the Federal Reserve to control everything. We need a system where it's open and can be used and controlled by the people, not by a corporation where they still loan the currency to the governments with interest attached, and then that currency then can be used amongst the people using their crypto service. This is something we still don't want. And again, as we can see, there's going to be a battle between the central banking system and the people who want to be separate and apart. Because if we have a decentralized crypto system as we go through this transition, there is really no reason to have the banking systems anymore, because your funds are not kept in that bank's system anymore. Your funds are on you, or in your wallet, or your paper wallet. And it can be recreated because the ledgers are spread across the globe, and they can be recreated going all the way back to the beginning of the system, because it keeps track of every single transaction. Not the amount, but each transaction, so it can be recreated at any time. So you don't have to worry about the banking system. You don't have to worry about having your funds in a bank. There'd be no reason for it. And once again, if we're trading these currencies outside of the Federal Reserve, or outside of the EU, outside of the BIS, the IMF, well, why do we have to pay taxes? Because, again, they're not issuing the debt, because the Fed note is a piece of paper that is really debt. It's not really a currency. So if we trade in it and we use it to purchase, there's no reason to pay any taxes. Because the only reason we pay taxes is because we're borrowing the money from the central bank. They're loaning the money with interest. So they have to collect the taxes to pay for that. I mean, that's how it originally started. And then, of course, the government kept on borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. They needed more taxes, and the whole thing was a complete disaster. But before that, there was no reason. The only reason we pay taxes is because of the Federal Reserve. We're paying back the interest on the loan money. If we have a decentralized system and we use it for transactions, the money wasn't loaned to us. There's no reason to have taxes. There's no reason for any of that. So as we move forward, we need to take back our system. And this is the opportunity to take back this system through the transition. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.